Hello. As you can see by the very first slide, today's video is going to be a Middle East report, and there are several topics I want to share with you today. Also, as you can see, I'm experimenting with a new video format for this report. Let's begin our Middle East report by viewing some Israeli military activities during the past year. In 2020, the Israeli Air Force is said to have carried out approximately 50 strikes inside Syria. Most of these sorties were against Iranian assets located in Syria. Also, a military unit from Syria, probably Iranian proxy organization, snuck just inside Israel's border in the Golan Heights and placed several IEDs, improvised explosive devices. They were discovered and removed without harm. Following the discovery of the IEDs, the surrounding area was surveilled, and some 80 feet inside Israel's border, a bag containing a number of explosive devices were found. On the Lebanon front, twice in 2020, groups of Hezbollah soldiers in southern Lebanon attempted incursions into Israeli territory to carry out attacks. Both were intercepted and repelled by the IDF. No kills and no injuries. On the Gaza front, 176 rockets were launched by terrorist organizations in Gaza towards Israel during the past year. 90 landed in open fields. 80 were intercepted by the Iron Dome. The remaining 6 rockets avoided interception, 5 of them all on one day, hitting a residential area, injuring 3 people and damaging several cars in the city of Ashkelon. None were killed. The IDF hit approximately 300 targets in Gaza following rocket attacks, tunnel activities, and incendiary balloons that caused fires in the crop fields of Israel. All targets hit in Gaza were at locations known to be occupied by terrorist groups. Very few were injured and very few killed. Changing to another topic, the number of Israeli Arabs joining the IDF, that is the Israeli Defense Forces, doubled in the year 2020 compared to 2019. It included several from the East Jerusalem neighborhoods, as well as some Bedouins that came from the Galilee region. Also among them were some Arab Christian youth that had come from the Galilee region. Now let's turn to the tunnel activity in Gaza. Over the past nearly decade, the terrorist groups inside Gaza have attempted to construct tunnels from a Gaza location under the border into Israeli territory. The primary reason for this activity is 1, to kidnap Israeli soldiers, and 2, to attack nearby Jewish communities. They have succeeded to some degree in that they have kidnapped at least 3 Israeli soldiers, and they are still holding the bodies of 2 fallen IDF soldiers and 2 live Israeli civilians. In 2016, I first mentioned to our class that to bring a halt to these tunnels, Israel decided to construct a barrier along the entire 40-mile border with Gaza. The barrier was to be both above and below ground. The underground barrier was to be at least 24 meters in depth. That's about 87 feet, but probably it would be much deeper than that. Construction began in 2017 and will be completed in March of this year, 2021. It will rely on advanced radar and optical sensors above and below ground. This will allow them to detect intruders. During construction of the wall, the IDF discovered nearly 24 tunnels and destroyed all of them. The barrier seems to be working because only one tunnel was detected in 2020, and that was in November, 3 months ago. The next place I would like to take you is one that we visited on our last Holy Land trip in November of 2019. The place name is Machaerus, which is probably unknown to many of us. During my 3 trips to Jordan, I had not visited Machaerus until this trip. Machaerus is a conical-shaped mountain with steep slopes on which a fortress or a castle had been built. It is located on the eastern side of the Dead Sea. The fortress was first built by a Hasmonean king, Alexander Jannaeus, 90 years before Christ. It was later rebuilt and remodeled in 30 BC by Herod the Great. It remained a military fortress, but Herod turned part of the mountain into a palace, as you can see by a possible reconstruction on this particular slide. Shortly after the birth of Christ, Herod the Great died, and the fortress or palace is given to one of his sons, Herod Antipas, who also bears the title of Tetrarch. Machaerus, according to Flavius Josephus, a first-century Jewish historian, is where John the Baptist was imprisoned and later executed. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 28, tells us the location of John the Baptist when he was baptizing people. In almost all translations, this verse in John says Bethany beyond Jordan, meaning on the east side of the Jordan River, opposite the city of Jericho. Machaerus would seem to be a natural place to imprison John the Baptist. It is only 18 miles south of Bethany beyond Jordan. Most of you may remember why John the Baptist was imprisoned by Herod the Tetrarch. According to Luke 3, verses 19 and 20, Herod Antipas imprisoned John because John accused him of the sin of taking to himself the wife of his brother, Philip. I received an email in the past month in which archaeologists say they have identified the dance floor and the throne of Herod at the place of Machaerus. This photo shows some of what exists there today. And here is another view. This photo provides a reconstruction of what the assembly hall may have looked like. Archaeologists and some theologians believe this is where Salome danced before Herod. Then, at the advice of her mother, Salome asked for the head of John the Baptist. You can read that in Matthew 14, verses 6, 7, and 8.